We have now owned our RV for a week as of today, and so on today's video, we want to share with you the top 11 things that we've already learned while living in our RV full time. So we've learned that it's important to turn off the engine of the tow vehicle that you are towing while in motion, because we had a little mishap. I forgot to turn off the engine of the car once I drove it up onto the dolly. The engine on the RV was going, and so I didn't hear the engine of the car, so I forgot to turn it off when I got out of it. And so we traveled down the road for 30 miles or more in tow with the car, the engine of the car running. So it's very important to remember to turn off the engine of the car that you're towing.
And number two is you got to really plan out your trips, even though, especially since if you're towing a vehicle behind you, because we're in a 38-foot long RV plus another probably 10 feet or more, 12 feet or more, 15, I don't know, haven't measured it yet, but it's long. So total, we're very long, the whole setup. So you can't just turn around anywhere. You have to have big open spaces. So, like truck stops and some, big parking lots and things like that. You got to just look on Google Maps, look at the satellite view, so you'll see ahead of time, the place that you're going, whether it be, no matter where it's at, a gas station or RV park or wherever you're going, make sure you can have a place to turn around.
Because we had a mishap there too, didn't we? We went to, in the town that we were in, Bluff, Utah, there was a cemetery, an old cemetery in town, and I wanted to go visit the cemetery. And we looked on Google Maps, and it looked like there was a space there large enough for him to turn around in. But when we got up there, it wasn't quite as large as we thought, but there was a vehicle in our way. If the vehicle hadn't been there, we might have been able to turn around. But we weren't able to, and so he had to back up with the car dolly.
I could have taken it off, but I didn't want to do all that.
It was kind of too much trouble, but you did get through it.
But on Google Maps, yeah, it took a little while, but we got through it.
Yeah.
In a worst case scenario, you can take the car off the dolly and take the take the dolly off of the RV, and and do all that. But we were just trying to avoid that. So
it's a lot of headache to have to do that.
But when we looked on Google Maps on Earth or satellite view, the turnaround looked big, but it looked like narrow instead of wide. So that's another thing I got to pay attention to. If it looks questionable, you may run into trouble. So this one did look questionable before we went up there, and we just tried it anyway because we thought, worst case scenario, it's a off the beaten path kind of an area. We can surely find a place to turn around, and we did. But it was just a pain. But we learned a hard lesson.
Yeah, it's an important lesson. And the third thing that we've learned is it's important for your pilot and your co-pilot to have the same destination on all phones or tablets while traveling. So that way, when you get to where you're supposed to be going, both people know where it's at, because we had a little mishap on that too. And his phone and my tablet weren't synced up right. We didn't have the same address in there, and so it caused a little bit of a frustration at one point because we didn't know what we were doing or where we were going. So that's an important thing to remember.
Because both of them were like visitor centers, and they were right down the road, 10 miles down the road from each other, and that's where the confusion happened. One of us had the destination of the visitor center there in town. The other one had the destination of the other visitor center of the other town.
The rest area.
Rest area.
Yeah.
And the rest area is the one that had the proper overnight boondocking spot.
Yeah.
Big enough spots where we could stay in. The other one did not, and it had a very strange, like really sharp curve. Although they had parking for RVs there for while you're at the visitor center, there was no overnight parking. And the exit out of there was very, very tight and very odd that they would not warn people ahead of time. So it was pretty stressful to try to make that curve, but we did it. I may have jumped the curve a little bit. I don't know, but we made it. But that's not the ideal situation. So yeah, make sure you're on the same game plan. You have a good co-pilot, and you're all
sync together.
Yeah, you know where you're going, and maybe even have a backup plan too. It never hurts, just in case you pull in somewhere and the spots are already taken. Of course, that's a given. Just have a plan B if you can. Okay, number 4. Definitely need a cell phone or Wi-Fi booster if you're going to be connected to the world or uploading videos or just checking email or whatever work. If you work from home and need an internet connection, we've noticed that even though a lot of these parks will have Wi-Fi, they advertise having Wi-Fi.
It's not so good.
Not very good. No.
You might get 2 bars if you're lucky, maybe.
Even if you're connected, it seems like they're unstable and just very slow. That's just from our experience so far. I'm sure there are a lot of parks out there that have really good, fast internet, but
this is the 3rd one we've stayed at, and all 3 of them so far, I've not been able to use Wi-Fi to get on the internet. I've had to use the hotspot on my phone in all 3 instances. So it's important to have that booster.
So we don't know quite yet, if we're going to need a cell phone booster or a Wi-Fi booster or both, but fairly important to have.
Yeah. Number 5 is you can turn off your water pump if you're attached to city water at an RV park. You don't have to leave your water pump on. That's something that we've learned.
We just didn't know that. I mean, I always thought the water pump had to be on to give water pressure to your pipes and to let you have water, but that's not true. When you hook up to the shore water, or so to speak, at the RV park, hook up to their water supply, you will have water pressure throughout the system. And you need to have a water pressure regulator to regulate the water pressure coming in to your RV, but that's we have one of those, so you don't want to go with too high water pressure, but anyway, you don't have to have the water pump turned on in your RV. That's for when you're boondocking. You just switch that on, and then you can have water pressure from your tanks. So yeah,
there you go.
There you go. Number 6.
No, number 7.
Oh, I can't count.
Hold on.
Hold up.
No, you're right. You are number 6.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. I'm sorry.
Told you.
You are number 6.
Number 6. Make sure the drawers and everything, cabinets, everything, a refrigerator drawer
are secured.
Are latched shut and secured, however you have it in your system, in your rig. Because we've had a few times when we were going over some bumps and curves and things, the refrigerator door came open
and everything comes spewing out of the refrigerator all over the floor.
So if you have like water bottles and heavy things like that, probably shouldn't put them in the door compartments if you have space for them like we do. We have space for
Well, once we figured out the latch, then we didn't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, basically we just didn't have the RV door actually latched.
Yeah.
Where it makes a clicking noise. So that's why it was happening. But the drawers too, our drawers will go in and they sit down just slightly, so we don't have anything to latch them shut. They just go in.
You have to make sure they're
way.
pushed in and down. Yeah.
Yeah, because they've come open a few times too. So, yeah.
We were driving one time and saw another Class A coming toward us. They actually had their slide out while they were driving. So it's very important to check all your stuff before you leave your site. That's one thing that we've learned.
And speaking of that, there's a little thing called, what are these called? RV minders?
RV minders. They're called RV minders.
I don't know if you can see that, but that's probably upside down or weird or I don't know. Oh, there it goes. So,
basically they're just slap bands.
I don't know if anybody remembers these, but
from the 80s.
From the 80s, but you just slap them, they click around. But what you use them for is you put them on the
steering wheel,
so you can't drive away with these things, clicked around all the way around the steering wheel. And they're different colors.
They come in a pack of 10, I think. And they all say something different, so you can remind you to check everything before you leave. And then once you do it, you can take the slap band off the steering wheel until they're all gone.
After you complete each thing. And this one here says step ladder, but there's ones for...
That's to remind you to bring in your steps.
bring in your steps.
Or if you have any ladders or anything that you need
Yeah.
to make sure it's latched or secured. And we're actually going to put a link to these down below in the description, at the top of the description. So you can, if you're interested, if you need something like that you can get these online. I think they're only about, less than $17?
I think these were $16. I'm not sure if there's
For a pack of 10.
But we already had them in here. The previous owner had already had these, so.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But they're very handy.
Yeah, it's at rvminder.com, I believe, but we'll put the link down below.
The seventh thing that we have learned, you need to talk about that.
Yeah, because this is for the diesel pushers out there. I already kind of knew this, but I've kind of learned the hard way too. That when you're at a diesel, like at a truck stop, there are places where the 18-wheelers and big rigs and diesel pushers pull up to get their diesel. Now there are at gas stations you can also find a diesel pump that for diesel trucks for regular sized vehicles, but for right
You're
now,
talking
what I'm talking about
specifically
is at like a truck stop when you pull up to where all the trucks, the diesel rigs pull into to get fuel. Those pumps are very high volume. They flow, like really fast. So the nozzle is bigger, and naturally because it flows faster. So in our rig here, the opening for the nozzle is just a little bit bigger than normal, but it's not as big as it kind of needs to be. So when you stick the nozzle in there and the hole, there's not much room for it to breathe, for the airflow to come back out. So it's pushing all that liquid in. It needs airflow back out. And if it's restricted any at all, then what happens is, which it'll probably do this in almost any rig, I'm not real sure, but on full speed, it basically shoots diesel back out after a couple of seconds. There's not enough airflow. So I've adjusted different ways, didn't put the nozzle all the way in the tank and all that. I've tried it different ways, but even one time it even shot the nozzle back out and spewed diesel on the ground, but it shut off as soon as it hit the ground. But it luckily didn't spray all over me. But it's something.
So it's important to just have it on the lowest setting.
So I've learned just to put it on the first little click, on the handle, and let it just kind of let it go a little bit slower. I mean, but that's a lesson learned just for the diesel rigs out there, for the owners. If you're thinking about that, just be aware of that. But if you can find a gas station, a regular gas station to go to that has beside the regular gas pumps, they'll have the diesel sometimes. Those are the smaller ones, and those go at the slower rates, so you probably won't have that issue at those. But our rig is too big to really
you can't
pull in there because we'd end up blocking every one of the pumps, trying to pull into one of those. So we don't even do that. So anyway, not sure if that affects a lot of people, but it's something to think about.
And number 8 is also something that you can talk about.
Oh yeah, that's fun. Number 8, when hooking up to sewer system, whenever you open that cap, that where your sewage comes, the place where you hook up your slinky, your pipe that goes into the sewer, right there's a cap on that. Usually coming from your rig, there's a cap, and when you take that cap off, just be aware. There sometimes is stuff in there, like usually liquid. Maybe, I don't know, if going down the road, if stuff in this tank just gets just a little bit of it works its way down to that little cap. So you need to have gloves on that don't have holes in them, that are like rubber, and when you first take that off, you're going to notice that, at least with our rig, a little bit of liquid comes out. And the first time I did it, I had gloves that were ripped and dry rotted, and the liquid went into my never mind, nasty. So just be aware that when you take that lid off, there could be something that comes out.
And number 9 is also something you can talk about.
In traffic, you need more space than you think you do. I mean, as far as between you and the person in front of you.
When you go to stop?
When you go, just anywhere. When you're driving along or when you're about to stop, just leave about 3 or 4 times more space than what you're used to leaving in your other vehicles that you drive, your regular vehicles. Because at least in ours, we're 26,000 pounds plus a tow vehicle, which is a couple thousand, at least more.
And that's empty, isn't it? 26, is that?
I don't know, but it's 26.
It's heavy.
26, 27, 28,000 pounds total. I'm not sure this in that range. It's heavy, and you just need to leave yourself some space, and just let off the gas pedal and just coast as much as you can. Let the engine slow you down, because you can't just stop on a dime in a lot of these rigs. And if you try that, you're going to rearrange everything in your RV, and everything's going to slide, and it's just not good. So leave yourself lots of space and just take it easy.
And that kind of leads us into the 10th thing that we've learned is it's going to take more time to get anywhere that you want to go in a big motorhome. You got to just take your time, because in a regular car, on any given travel day, we might travel 8 to 10 hours in one day, but not in an RV. You're not going to get that far in an RV. There's all kinds of things you got to stop and check, and you got to get your gas, and things just take longer. But so that's one thing that we've learned. You're not going to get anywhere in a big hurry, which is also number 11.
Well, I was going to say something about that too. Is that you're not going to be in a big hurry. And also another thing, at least for me, driving something so big, it takes all your concentration.
Yeah, that's true.
Like you don't just look around too much. You can.
It's
look
not like
around.
driving in a car.
Yeah, it's not like that at all. You have to really focus on what you're doing. At least if you're a good driver, you should be doing that. And but it's another thing. It's just kind of mentally exhausting. Any more than 4 or 5 hours of driving, it's really mentally exhausting. At least for me.
You're a newbie.
I'm a newbie.
Maybe it'll get better. But.
Maybe get better, but I don't really like it's just, it's mentally stressful. It's not that I don't like it, it's just I don't like to be stressed out and tired when I'm driving, obviously. So just give yourself a little bit of time and know that it's going to take longer.
And the 11th thing that we have learned is just to slow down. Life now is so hectic and everything like that, so you just got to slow down. When you're in an RV, you can just slow down and take your time, and you're now in RV time. It's something completely different than it is in the real world. So that's the 11th thing that we've learned. Just slow down, have a good time, and don't get in a hurry.
And number 12,
we have a bonus tip.
A bonus, yeah.
And our bonus tip is,
if you're on I-70 eastbound coming through Colorado, you better hold on to your hat, because the road is terrible. I mean, it's the worst road I've ever seen.
I think we caught air twice on Interstate 70 eastbound in Colorado. It was so bad.
You should never catch air in a 26,000 pound rig. I mean, we weren't even going fast. It was just... And there were deep ruts in the road that would kind of catch you, and kind of, it was weird. You couldn't drive out of them. Sometimes it would pull you into them. It was making people, and there's, it's narrow sometimes. Some
of the guardrails were only like a foot high, so you could have just went right over the edge. The roads were it was terrible. Yeah. So if you're watching this and you work on the roads in Colorado, fix your roads, please. They're terrible.
I'm sure it's not that bad when there's snow on the ground, because it probably fills in the ruts and they probably don't notice it that much. But yeah, put another layer of pavement on there. Fill in some holes. Build some guardrails. That kind of stuff.
Anyway, we hope you enjoyed our video today about the 11 lessons that we've learned on the road so far. And if you like it, please give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel for more updates and more travel tips and things that we'll bring in the future. And we hope to see you on our next video.
Bye.